have to be ready, and in some cases, it's not going to be nice. The fight's coming to you on a whole different level. They're loaded for bear. Joe Resinello.
Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always.
They're not going to take this lying down.
On the Crusade Channel, always on air, and always online at crusadechannel.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, oh man, are we going into the breach on the Crusade Channel.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, we are going in to the breach on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Joe Resinello, you know what I'm getting tired of, Joe? We're going to jump right into it. I'm getting tired of all the compassionate people out there, all the loving people out there, the ones that call us deplorable, we're disgusting, we're scuzzy, we're this, we're that, okay? But you know what, Joe? The people that do that, they lie to people, all right? They lie to people. They lie to people about the lifestyles that many people are living, particular lifestyles that we're going to get into and really go way into the breach. You know, if we didn't care, Joe Resinello, why would we say a word? Why would we care? Well, why would we open our mouth? There, you know, when you look at, let's say, for argument's sake, the LGBT community, all right, that's what they want to be called. Okay, let's call them that. Okay, nobody's telling them the truth about their lifestyle. Nobody. You know who is? Catholic Church. People who care. People who actually care that these people, whether or not they live or die or lead a good life or go to heaven or go to hell. People who actually care about not only their souls but their lives in this world too. Joe, that lifestyle is destructive. And on a spiritual level, Joe, the wages of sin is death. All sin, not just their sins, our sins too. Okay, if you're in mortal sin, if you're habitually committing mortal sin, whether it's sodomy or adultery, you're going to hell if you don't repent. Okay, so the thing is, you know, the wages of sin are death. Austin Ruse wrote a great article in Crisis Magazine. Joe, I'm just going to hand it over to you. We'll start the conversation because to me, Joe Resinello, these are the conversations. This is the reason why we're here. Because we have to tell people that we're unafraid to discuss these topics. So I'm just going to hand it over to you and to get started tonight.
Well, basically, as Joe said, Austin Ruse, who's a friend of the show, we've had him on a number of times. He wrote an article in Crisis Magazine about monkeypox. Basically, what he was saying in the article, just the gist of it, is monkeypox is almost exclusively happening among men who have sex with men. The cases are lining up in the hundreds in both Washington, D.C. and New York City. I've actually also heard on another media channel that they were even considering, this hasn't happened yet, calling it an STD because it's so pervasive in the homosexual community. Now, let me be clear and let me be objective. I mean, clearly this isn't a disease that is just in the homosexual community, but it clearly is pervasive in it. Do your own research. So basically, our question is, will the media ask the LGBT community to do their part in curtailing the disease?
Well, that's the issue.
I mean, there's the issue. Or will they tap dance around it? Because it does spread through sexual contact. This is factual.
Well, according to Austin Ruse, okay, and Austin Ruse is just one of those guys, Joe. He knows a lot about what's going on in the world when it comes to this, when it comes to abortion. He works at the UN. This is, I'm going to hand it right back to you, Joe Resinello, at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel. It seems to have originated in Africa and somehow jumped the stream. This is a quote from Ruse, to gay orgies in Europe. And now it's coming to all these pride events in the United States. And my fear, Joe, is they're going to demagogue this issue. Not people like us. We're just going to state clearly, the facts surrounding this case and what we'd recommend. There's no ideology here, all right, on our end, okay? But there is ideology, coming from that community because they don't want to hear it, Joe. They don't want to hear that the best way to prevent, the same way with AIDS back in the 90s, the best way not to get AIDS is to abstain. And it's the one thing that sent them through the roof, saying we don't want to. And it's going to be the same with this, Joe. And unfortunately, I just don't want to see people suffer and die. But if you're not listening, then what do you want us to do? Joe
Well,
Rossinello,
again,
what do you
the
say?
media has to be called. It's not a gay disease. Let's be clear, and we're not calling it that because it isn't. But it is pervasive in the homosexual community. It's passed through semen. Look it up. The liberal media will tell you that, and it's pervasive in that community. Frankly, if you're living a very, will be kind, sexually active life with multiple partners, it spreads. This is factual. Frankly, to be honest with you, it just goes to show you sex is not meant to be had in that type of manner. I mean, this is not the only disease that's spread through casual sex with many partners. I mean, so is herpes, so is gonorrhea, so is syphilis. I mean, it's basically a control that nature, I'm not going to say it's something imposed by God. It's a control by nature that basically says to the individual, whether you're a heterosexual or a homosexual, actively living those lifestyles, promiscuous lifestyles, that you will get sick if you do this. And this is the thing. And again, we'll call them out. What is the liberal media going to do? Are they going to call for basically some type of, what, I don't know, what they're not going to call for chastity, but are
Well,
they
no,
call
no,
for
that
monogamy? You know
no,
what I'm
well, that Joe, listen, but here's the thing: we went through it back in the '90s with AIDS. It's like when you the argument back then, and I remember it was on the one hand, you had in New York City, you had Cardinal O'Connor, quite frankly, okay, saying you need to abstain. Okay, now obviously Cardinal O'Connor was trying to say you also need to convert your life, okay, from homosexual to heterosexual. All right. Having said that, but you need to abstain. You run the risk of dying. That's what the church is saying, particularly in New York, okay? Because obviously New York has a large gay community, all right? That was one camp. And the other camp saying, you just don't want to get out there and spend the money and come up with a cure for this, which is just not true. What do? Spend $1 billion, snap your fingers, and come up with a cure for AIDS or monkeypox? What do you think? It's just that easy? The research involved, the testing involved, okay? What do you think? You just somehow evil Catholic conservatives are holding back the cure-all for you because we want you to die? You know that that's not the case. Here's the thing, Joe, okay? It's one thing when you don't want to listen to the moral argument, okay? That's one thing. All right. You say, well, I don't want to listen to your Catholic morality, whether it's abortion, whether it's homosexuality, whether it's contraception, which we're going to get into tonight. Okay. We don't want to listen to your Catholic morality. Okay. But do you want to die? Is the question that needs to be asked. Because that is the uncomfortable truth, Joe Rossinello, that Ruse is pointing out. This lifestyle is a dangerous one. Okay. And this goes back to AIDS. You're seeing it manifested now and everything in between. It's a dangerous lifestyle. You really are playing Russian roulette. And I for the life of me don't understand. I mean, how you wouldn't just say, okay, let me put that down. I'm not going to be able to do this. I mean, your response, Joe.
Well, all things have consequences. I mean, people rationalize their life away, Joe. I mean, that's done on just about every level of society. All behavior has consequences. And frankly, when you live as a Catholic, a practicing Catholic, you look at life square in the eyes. You're going to die. There is sin. There are consequences for sin. And again, please don't misunderstand me. I don't know the mind of God, and I'm not saying that this is a punishment. Believe me, I'm not, because I don't know the mind of God. But what I am saying is the science is saying that this disease is now pervasive in the homosexual community. So the answer, clearly, until there is some type of vaccine, because currently there is not,
Right.
one should be careful. And is the media going to say that? And I
Absolutely
say
not.
they're not. They're not
Absolutely
going
not.
to.
Oh,
And
wait,
that
Joe.
and
Joe, let me take it one step further. I'm going to kick it right back to you. Fox News ain't going to tell them that either.
But that's what I'm saying. And this is where, again, the media, like, listen, are they really on the side of the people? I mean, like, because it's just there are certain taboos in the mainstream that you can't go there. And this is
Right.
one of them. You can't say what we are just saying. And frankly, what we're saying isn't anything bad. What all we're saying is listen, in your community, people are getting monkeypox because they're engaging in casual sex and in some cases living promiscuous, very promiscuous lifestyles, and they're getting this disease. So what are you going to do about it? What is the answer until there is medicine to help you? I mean,
Right. I mean, no, Joe, but
I
there
don't know
you
what to say
go.
other than
But there
that.
you go at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. There you go, just you employing that PhD in common sense that you have hanging on the wall there in New Jersey. Okay. They don't want to hear common sense. Joe, it's just funny. It's a stupid joke. Okay. Guy goes to the doctor. He raises his arm. He says, Doc, it hurts when I do this. The doctor says, don't do that. And I know it's a stupid joke, but it's a joke I always keep in my mind. If it's going to hurt, don't do that. Don't do it. Okay. Now, there's many things that we are tempted to do. Sometimes we fail, but this is a lifestyle that is embraced by the media. To answer your question, okay, they're not going to go do anything that's going to make it seem that this is something that men, gay men in particular, have to worry about. Now, Ruse points out, as of a few days ago, New York City had 336 cases of this. None of them are women. Not one. Okay. Now, like you said, Joe, they could talk about stigmas all they want. Okay. I don't want to stigmatize anybody. But the fact is, sometimes you can identify plagues within a particular community brought about by the actions of a particular community. Now, AIDS was like that. Now, even though heterosexuals got AIDS, okay, yes, they did. But they found that the heterosexuals that had AIDS, when you do like the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation, okay, if you got AIDS from a woman through heterosexual sex, at some point she had sex with somebody who either had sex with a man or was using a hypodermic needle. I mean, these are just facts. They always talk about facts, Joe. Everything is facts. These are just facts. Okay. They're the ones, by the way, Joe. They're the ones that call it a gay disease. I never called AIDS a gay disease. I don't know anybody in my life that did call it a gay disease, but it was obviously a disease that affected that community disproportionately, and it's the same thing that's going on now. Now, I want your comment on this. Okay, all sin, Joe, is destructive, and as we said, as Saint Paul said, the wages of sin is death. Is death. I think Austin Ruse is being very loving and compassionate by outlining in this article how this is a dangerous lifestyle. The gay life is a dangerous one. Talk about that, Joe.
Well, basically, it gets twisted by the press, but the lifespan of people who live homosexual, lifestyles is 20 years that of heterosexuals.
20 years
Now they'll
less.
say that they kill themselves because they're stigmatized by society. Well, to be honest with you, society has embraced homosexuality. That is a fact. I just heard a statistic from Mike Knowles, who basically he saw a poll amongst conservatives. This is conservatives. 50% of so-called conservatives in America are in favor of same-sex marriage. So
Yep.
what does that say to me? That says America as a whole has embraced same-sex marriage. It's just a fact. Now, explain to me then, again, I'm just being logical, why homosexuals live 20 years less than heterosexuals. Because the lifestyle is a dead end. All sinful lifestyle ends in a dead end. It doesn't matter. And frankly, there's a high percentage of homosexuals that have drug abuse, alcoholism, suicide.
Depression.
This is not religious dogma. These are sociological statistics.
Joe Resinello, remember something, okay? And we pointed this out at the front line with Joe and Joe in the past, okay? They say that the reason why there's a higher rate of depression and guilt and shame and suicide in this community is because of people like us. And
That's
that's a lie. And you want to know why? And it's demonstrable that that's a lie. Sweden is one country in the world that's they got rainbow flags, Joe, flying all over the place. They might as well change their national flag to a rainbow flag. The incidence of depression and suicide in Sweden in this community are just as high as everywhere else in the Western world. Just as high. There's no, just because the society is open minded. The problem is, okay, and many people point this out, okay, psychologists, sociologists, not just right wing Catholics, okay, if you want to call us that, okay, is that you don't need anybody to tell you when you're living this lifestyle. You know yourself. You feel the guilt yourself. E. Michael Jones illustrates this point abundantly when he discusses Michel Foucault, okay, the French philosopher. And he gets into a lot of details that we won't get into here. He didn't need anybody telling him that he didn't need the Catholic Church telling him what he was doing was wrong. He knew it in his heart. He knew it in his soul. That's why he was looking for punishment. Now, my thing about this community is I don't want to punish you. I'm nobody to punish anybody. I got my own sins that I have to worry about and I have to get liberated from, okay? Because I don't want to go to hell. So I'm not judging you. But you guys out there, you are not looking yourself in the mirror. You're not looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Now, Joe, I'm going to kick it over to you. But one person who has, and Ruse actually brings him up, is Joseph Chiambra, okay? And Joseph Chiambra, now he was gay and he converted, okay? But the lifestyle, and we had him on the show a couple times, all right? Joe, it ain't a pretty picture, Joe. And if you have real compassion, you point this out
like
to these
Chiambra and Walt Heyer, they give a testimony to a lifestyle. Walt Heyer transitioned from a male's body to a female, then transitioned back. He took drugs, and I think he went through some type of surgical procedure. That's given no airtime. Now, these are people that live the lifestyle. Joseph Chiambra wrote a book, Disordered. I'll plug the book. He's a friend of the show. He's a good guy. He lays this out. No airtime whatsoever. I mean, Austin Ruse, people say you're haters. Joe and Joe, you're haters. Actually, no. Austin Ruse opines in the article. What does he say? He said, what are Catholics to do? We're supposed to love and pray for those who live the same-sex attraction lifestyle. We have to pray for them. Joseph Chiambra will go to the gay pride parade in San Francisco. He'll have T-shirts and give them out. Jesus loves gay men. Jesus loves everybody. We have to love everybody. But loving people is telling them the truth. It is a dead end lifestyle. I've heard this actually on the Journey Home with Marcus Grodi. Actually, he had a gentleman that lived a same-sex lifestyle and then came back to the Catholic Church. And he said, you get to the end of yourself. It's like any sin. I'll use an example. Just you're an alcoholic. We're allowed as Catholics to have a drink or even a couple of drinks. It's when you lose control of your senses is when it becomes a mortal sin. That's a fact. With that said, if you abuse alcohol, when you lose control of your senses, you're living in a state of mortal sin. You come to the end of yourself, because what you're actually looking for is something to replace God, to give you an inside, like interior fulfillment that only God can. People do that in a million different capacities. They chase after women. They chase after money. They chase after likes on Facebook and on YouTube. There's a million different
Twitter
things.
wars.
And Twitter, the devil is smarter than you, and he knows what tweaks you, and people chase after it. The point of the matter is, anything that we chase after to give us that interior fulfillment that only God can ends in a dead end. Well, we're just talking about one thing, and this is the homosexual lifestyle. It will never lead to perfect fulfillment because we are not made for that. Irregardless if someone's feelings are sincere and geared towards that. And that's what Joseph Chiambra writes about in his book, Disordered. Many times those feelings are rooted in sexual abuse. in a very bad relationship with a father. We
Right.
can go on and on and on. Again, read his book. This is a man that lived the lifestyle for a decade, dismissed. Now we're bringing up something. In your lifestyle, there is a disease that is now again pervasive in your community. What are you going to do about it? What is the mainstream media going to say about it while you watch these men die?
No,
And that's just what's going to happen.
right. Well, and that's the thing. And by the way, I'm going to give you a little plug. The one time that I came down when you were working with the MCs, the Missionaries of Charity down in the West Village, okay, and I was moved. I had to have been moved by it because I still remember it, and I was only there once, okay, and all those men that they were taking care of who were dying of AIDS, okay, through either drug use, hypodermic needle use, gay sex, or both, okay. And I'm saying to myself, and then we brought this up on the show before. When these men are dying of AIDS after having lived that lifestyle, that big, bad, hateful Catholic Church, they're the only ones there to comfort those people if they choose to. Those men went in there knowing that these holy women, these missionaries of charity, were going to take care of them, and they did. And I will say that to anybody. While you're out, looking for sodomy in the bars in West Village, these guys are dying. They're your friends. They're dying of AIDS. They're suffering, and the only people taking care of them are the missionaries of charity in the Roman Catholic Church. I'll break it to them. Let's move on to the next topic, Joe. But I want to say this. I like the way Ruse ends this. He says the key thing for anyone tempted to same sexual behavior: never give up. He talks about courage, the group courage, the apostolic courage. Never give up. You can change, and never give in the devilish whispers of those like Father James Martin, who say this is an acceptable and healthy way of life. Joe Rossinello, I don't care if you're with one man, or I don't care if you're Michel Foucault, okay, in the bathhouses, okay? This is a dangerous lifestyle. It absolutely is demonstrable. Psychologists will tell you that. An objective psychologist, okay, not a political activist. An objective psychologist, a sociologist, okay, will tell you this is a destructive lifestyle. And we have to encourage people and say, you know what? We're all called to change. Every one of us is called to change. I'm called to change. Joe Rossinello is called to change. You're called to change if you're out there and you're living a gay lifestyle, okay? You just have to come to a realization that you need to. Joe, you got any final thoughts on that?
Well, no, I mean, the answer is organizations like Courage. The answer is, chastity. I mean, that's it. I mean, and frankly, to be honest with you, it's like anything. People, you could say things all you want. It's like bouncing a rubber ball against the wall. People have to come many times to the end of themselves. They basically say, "This is it. This is it. This is my life." And when you do say that, no matter what choice you've made in life, that's a bad choice. Um, you have to then change.
Yeah.
You have to redirect your life. And that's where God is. He's waiting for you to redirect your life. And that's available to everybody. Everybody. No
Amen,
one
Joe.
is an outsider to that. It comes down to just a simple thing. Go to confession. It's very simple. It really is. And
Well,
that's
that's
the
if you're
beginning
Catholic.
of the change.
Well, that's if you're Catholic, Joe.
True,
If you're
true.
not
You could
Catholic,
always become Catholic.
well,
I
that's what
mean,
I'm
like
saying. If you're
like
not Catholic, you need to maybe take a good
yeah,
look at
I
the
mean,
Catholic
like, in
Church.
all honesty, it's a very cathartic process, confession, to be honest with you. And frankly, people who go to confession regularly, if you ask me, they're very healthy. They're not perfect, but they're
Oh,
healthy people. It's a healthy process. And I recommend it to anyone who's out there that's Catholic. And if you think I'm lying to you, why don't you? I always put this out there. Then why don't you try it? How, like, you people try all these things to feel better. Read books, self-help books, listen to this person, listen to whatever. Why don't you just try it? You may
right.
be shocked at how you walk out of that box. You might be shocked. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, listen, at the end of the day, Joe Rossinello, while we're here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. the last live radio station standing. Remember, the chat room's always open at crusadechannel.com/chat. Joe, here's the thing. The fundamental difference between us as practicing and faithful Catholics and others is that we recognize the need to put down our sins. We do not accept. I know you, you know me, and we know a lot of faithful Catholics. None of us accept our sinfulness. Those things that we have a proclivity for, okay, could be anger, could be many things, okay. We know that these are issues and problems that, if left alone, they could fester in our lives. They could lead to destructive, destructive consequences and disastrous consequences in our lives. Okay, so we seek to grow in holiness. We want to put these things down. That's the fundamental difference between us and many people out there. Yes, and I say out there in the secular world because the world is secular right now. Okay, because the church is weak. Or the men in the church have made it weak over the last 50 years. They embrace their lifestyle. They embrace their sin. Nothing to see here. Don't have to put anything down. I'm attracted to a man. I'm just going to continue living my life that way. That's their attitude. Or I'm a guy who cheats on his wife. I've heard it a million times in my life. Every man, every real man should have a mistress. Okay, whatever. That's a dopey idea. There's a lot of people out there with that mentality, and that's the fundamental difference. Is we do not embrace something we know to be wrong, even if those things those are things that we are doing wrong in our life. We seek to overcome those things. Joe, contraception's a big deal in America. You've made that point a million times at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. It ain't going anywhere. Okay, and you want to know something, Joe? Realistically, it ain't going anywhere. But that's not what the danger is right now. Okay, no one's coming. No one's knocking down your door. I like to break it to some of these egomaniacs, Joe. The church ain't breaking down your bedroom door. The Pope's not knocking there, nor are Joe and Joe. What you do behind your bedroom door is going to be between you and God. Okay, but contraception is not what people are coming after. They're coming after something different. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Well, what Joe is talking about is the show that the DNC put up with regard to the Right to Contraception Act. It was complete political theater. First and foremost, if you read Alito's, I guess like his statement on Roe, what do you call it? Not the
opinion.
The opinion. Basically, he confronts this clearly. He says, we're not going after contraception. We're not going after what's it called? The same-sex marriage. He actually notes it. Of course, the mainstream media does not talk about anything. This is pure political theater. But then if you look at the legislation itself, in it, they're basically trying to, again, further abortion through different means, attacking First Amendment rights in the language, calling it something else. It's very similar to what DeSantis put forth, and they called it the anti-gay bill or whatever.
Don't say gay. Don't say gay.
All he said in Florida and the press, because they're not fair and they're not.
Well, they're liars, Joe. It goes beyond not being fair. They're liars.
And they basically, all DeSantis basically said, if you ask me, he didn't go far enough. It should be K through 12. I'm not interested in you teaching my children in a public school sexual morality because I pay bills too. I pay taxes too, just like you do. If you want to go down the I'm not interested in your ideology road, well, I'm not interested in yours, and I pay taxes too. My money's green just like yours is. And let's just be agnostic. No, of course not. And that's exactly why they have an agenda. And if you don't see that or you're not willing to confront that, frankly, you're living in a hole. You're putting your head in the sand because that's exactly what they're doing. But getting back to this, all this is a show. Nothing more than a show. And then you have 8 Republicans that vote for it because they're for the show. And that should tell you everything you need to know, that the country is no longer about the people. It's pure crap and theater. I mean, if you have eyes to see, read the document. But no one does that.
No one's going to read the document.
And of course not. And sometimes I don't even think the politicians read the document.
No.
And then they just parrot what the media says. It's sad. It really is.
That's the state of our political system right now. They don't read these bills. These representatives, these members of the House, they don't read these bills. Joe Resinello at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. They don't take a look. They're what do you call it? what do they call those people? The assistants, whatever they are, the congressional assistants, congressional aides. They go out, they get the bill, they give them an overview, they give them the cliff note. Joe, remember we used to go to buy the cliff notes when we were
Sure.
in high school
Oh,
because I didn't want to
yellow
read
little
Old Man in the
pamphlets. I
Sea.
remember them.
Right. I didn't want to read Hemingway. So or Julius Caesar. So I went out and got the Cliff Notes, me and 90% of my high school class. They get the Cliff Notes version from their aide, and then they sign it, and then they don't care. The problem is Republicans. The problem in this country, Joe, is always Republicans. I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it a million times until people tell me, Joe, you really should stop saying that. But nobody's going to stop me saying it because I'm saying the truth. We know the scorpion stings. That's the left. The left is always going to sting. Don't blame them for acting like scorpions because that's what scorpions do. What you have to do is you have to blame the Republicans and the conservatives, who you mentioned earlier. Conservatism now means you have to accept gay marriage. We'll get into that, in another show. But where even conservative Catholics like Matt Schlapp and his wife, says 2 men and a child, an adopted child, that's a family. I don't know, Matt. I don't know where you're coming from. I, as a political conservative, am certainly not going to accept that. But the thing is, it's these Republicans and this Republican. Joe, notice how we stopped calling people names on the show. I'm very proud of ourselves, by the way. We used to call AOC like certain names, nothing harsh, but we stopped doing that. Nancy Mace, who I could come up with about 10 names for, okay? She's a South Carolina Republican. She said, my state is banning exceptions, protect contraception, okay? Now, you want to break it to these people. You want to say, you're supposed to be the smartest people in the room. We're all dummies. We don't know how the system works. We skipped that part of civics in the 5th grade, okay? Joe, if you look at it, David Harsanyi was writing an article in the Federalist. He said, even if the Supreme Court decided tomorrow, now we all know this, but, like to back up our arguments, even if the Supreme Court decided tomorrow that contraception was not under the purview of the Constitution, as they did with abortion, the laws of South Carolina, where Nancy Mace is, and the laws everywhere else in the United States would remain right where they are.
Oh, that's a fact.
The difference,
absolutely a fact.
But here's the difference. They don't want, Joe. They say that they want to live and let live attitude. They don't want to live and let live attitude. Okay. Because this conversation that we're having has less to do with contraception and more to do with conscience rights. This right to contraception act, this was a bill that was passed last week. So the Democrats manufactured this panic by claiming Republicans voted against the bill that protects access to contraception. They did no such thing. They said, we're not going to cover it in medical plans. We're not going to force people to provide it for you if they have an objection based on their conscience, based on their religious beliefs. That's what they can't say. See, the party of not live and let live are the Democrats, because they want to force you professionally and personally to go along with their agenda. Am I wrong? Am I mischaracterizing it, Joe?
Well, Joe, they do have an agenda and they have an ideology, and under the guise of we have no ideology. And they are shoving it down your throat. But frankly, what's sad is people just buy their line of bull, because this is nothing more than political theater. Nothing more than political theater. And people will repeat it. And frankly, it's sad and parrot it. It's pathetic, actually. Right. It just shows you, to be honest with you, how uninformed most of America is. And here's another thing. Some of these people are they're willfully ignorant, because, Joe, I've said this a million times. This goes for both the right and the left. People just want to be affirmed in their belief system. They're not interested in the truth or the facts. There is a small percentage of Americans that are. The rest want to just watch the TV or listen to the radio and say, yes, yes. They're not interested in objective truth, because objective truth challenges you. It asks you questions, and sometimes you don't like the answers, and people are not interested in that. And that's why these people get paid what they get paid, because they're feeding in. Now, I'm not saying, to be honest with you, some of the things that some of these people say, frankly, on both sides of the aisle could be true. There's kernels of truth. Sometimes there's a lot of truth. But with that said, people are not interested in objective truth. And this is flat out a lie. And frankly, you could talk about contraception in an objective manner, saying how it leads to divorce. And frankly, people don't want to hear that either, including Catholics.
No, Joe. Listen, you're saying what the church, going back to Pope Paul VI, said in Humanae Vitae. Okay, they want to make you think that contraception is just what you do behind your bedroom door, and it only affects the two people involved, and that's just not the case. There are societal ramifications to the contraceptive mentality. People don't want to hear that. What do you mean I can't use a condom? What about I don't want to get the woman pregnant? I'll tell you what. How about not having sex? You don't want to get a woman pregnant? Yeah, but I want to have my fun. I got my mistress. I can't take a chance she's going to get pregnant. And if she gets pregnant, I got to go take her for an abortion. Nobody wants to talk about abused mistresses by married men who are forced to get abortions because the married man impregnated them. Planned Parenthood doesn't want to talk about that. But let's get back to this bill for a second, Joe, because what I don't like is what they do, Joe. Let's say you and I were in Congress. Heaven forbid you and I were in Congress. They might assassinate us. But leaving that aside, okay? And let's say we propose legislation that had to do with a thing, whatever that thing might be, and we want to address that issue and only that issue. What the left does, they load it up with amendments, okay? They make it where you and I created the legislation. We can't even vote for that same legislation because they crammed in all their left-wing ideological policy positions that they want to put in there. And then when Republicans vote against it, they say, look, they voted against helping the working man. Well, no, but you wanted to put all this other stuff in there. So now let me not be so vague. Let's go to this, okay? This bill, okay, which they say merely protects the right of a person to obtain contraception is wrong. It's a lie. It's a lie. The media is lying. They're lying about it, okay? In the bill's findings, we learn one of its purposes is to undercut conscience exemptions for birth control, which under the Democrats' definition include abortion, drugs, and sterilization. Joe, there's a lot of doctors and nurses out there. They're not taking part in that. They're not going to be the party to sterilizing a woman, let's say, or a man. They're not going to do it. They're not going to provide abortifacient drugs that kill the baby after the baby has been conceived. So it is an abortifacient. It's an abortion, okay? And David Arsanya, who's an atheist, by the way, he's not even Roman Catholic or Protestant or Jewish. He's an atheist, okay? He said, too bad. No American should be compelled by the state or anyone to deliver a product that undermines their faith. So what happens here, Joe, is they demagogue the contraceptive issue because they know it's a winner with most people, as you've abundantly pointed out at the front line with Joe and Joe. It's a political winner for them. You're not going to mess with contraception, even in a deep red state. It's not going to happen, okay? But then they take it and they make it, they put all this other stuff in there. And then when Republicans vote against it, they say, see, they're fascists. They're against contraception. No, we're against Planned Parenthood getting any money, okay, that they're going to use to sterilize a 13-year-old girl without her parents' knowledge, okay? We're against Planned Parenthood getting any tax money. Like, this is the way they do things. And when you fight against it, you're the bad guy.
Well, you can't fight against it because the media fights for them. You see, that's the problem. And not enough people look underneath the sheets and read the document. And that's the sad reality of American politics. I mean, both parties, and we talked about this offline, are very similar to one another. You see, this country is run by elites. It really is. Mm-hmm. We vote, and then after that, special interests run America. It's just a fact. And that is why one of the reasons why both the Republicans and he's not the political messiah. He's not going to change America. Why they hated Donald Trump. Donald Trump, again, was he perfect? Absolutely not. But Donald Trump put forth policies that helped the little man. He helped African Americans. There was never a rate of employment so high in the history of our, I believe it's like taking like note of the records of economy, the highest rate of employment for African Americans ever. I mean, like and that's just one statistic from basically the various like pluses that his presidency brought America. They're not interested in you. If you think they are, to be honest with you, you're delusional. Elites in the Republican Party and the Democrats run everything. They run everything. Republicans give lip service to pro-life ideas and do nothing. Republicans give lip service to the border, but in essence, they like
They
immigrants
don't.
coming in because it's cheap labor.
Yep.
They do nothing
Right.
because it's the same institutional elites that run everything. And until we address that special interest issue, where people are giving big dollars, special interests are funneling money, both on the right and the left. Don't think it's just the left, it's the right too. We are never going to have a country of the people. It's a country of the few. That is a fact. That is an absolute fact. If you think differently, I'm going to be honest with you, you're not paying attention. That's why sometimes when stuff gets put forth and you wonder why it passes and you say that completely doesn't make sense. Well, they know that.
Right.
But it makes sense because somebody is paying them money, a lobby, a special interest, a super PAC, a union. It makes perfect interest to them, and their vote means more to them than yours.
I'll tell you an interesting one. There's a clip going around YouTube of Senator Cruz. He's actually proposing to do away with super PACs.
That's
Um,
great. I'm
I
all
was
for that.
surprised. He said, but he said, but in order to do that, then the restriction on the individual campaign donation has to be lifted. That there could be no cap on an
See, that's no
individual's.
good too. I don't want anyone giving money. Dude, I'll be truthful to you. Your vote is your vote. My vote and Elon Musk's vote should be the same. There is no money. First of all, we spend $1 billion on a presidential campaign. What a waste of money. What a waste of money. All that is a power grab. People don't give money because they like people. They give money because there's strings attached. Period. End of story. If you haven't figured that out as an adult, frankly, you're not an adult. People don't just do things for you. I mean, your mommy and your daddy do. But adults don't, unless they're family or a very good friend. But that's not how it works in life. People
Right.
give money because they want something in return. There should be not. You see, that shows that Ted Cruz is in the bag. I don't want anyone to give big money. Nothing. Zero.
I,
Nothing.
I'm going to hesitate, but I'm going to hesitate from saying that he's in the bag because to go against super PACs, to go against corporations, which is also something he's calling for. Okay. In other words, where the Democrat, like let's say woke corporations, things like that. I think he's being. I'm not saying you're wrong, Joe. I think Ted Cruz. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this. I think he's sincere in that he wants to take, let's say, the influence that these super PACs have and unions who claim to speak for their whole union membership, but they do not. Okay, they get like the Screen Actors Guild, right? I stopped paying my dues to the Screen Actors Guild. I don't want my money going for the rainbow agenda, and I have no say in that. See, those are things I think Cruz was addressing. But again, the point was
No,
not to get
that
into
is
Ted
good. But
Cruz.
then what about big money? Like, for instance, we just saw what's his face give $1 million to Beto O'Rourke. What the heck's his name? Soros. And then the Koch brothers give the same money to
But if
Chamber
they
of
do it,
Commerce.
but if they do it as individuals, Joe, it is different than doing it as a super PAC or as an organization. If they give it as individuals, okay, I agree with you. They want something in return. I'm not a very wealthy man, and we have some very, very wealthy ideological people in this country. Okay, so we know if they're forking over tens of millions of dollars,
Oh,
okay, then they want something in return.
given.
Peters, what's his name? I forgot his name. Singer, who runs one of the big hedge funds. Others like people like him and people that run these hedge funds, they're not giving.
Pharmaceutical lobby. I mean, we could go on and on and on. I
Right. Well,
mean,
the
like,
thing is, if they give you money, if they give you $100 million, which is a drop in the bucket for a lot of these guys, they're going to want something in
of
return.
course, and that's where, first of all, why does a politician, in all honesty, take a step back for a minute, need money? Why do I need to give you anything other than my vote? You represent the people. You don't represent the few that give you money. And this is where our system got haywire. I am not interested. Your vote should be my vote, and it's not. And that's why we have problems. That's why you see what's going on in the teachers union. The teachers union does not represent American families, even
Of course not.
Democrats.
Of course not.
Democrats are not for this crap, but it's the mouthpiece for a special interest. None of this should exist. It should be pure policy. This is where we're twisted.
Yeah.
And again, these are flaws. I don't even know how you could justify why you need money. Why do you need a cent?
Well. The thing is this, Joe. You're going to have a campaign needs money. They got to buy
No, but
advertising. They got
there's
to get the
another thing.
message
These
out.
campaigns are all, Joe, if you ask me, like in Europe, I think it's like 3 debates. That's it. All these commercials. You want to talk about a waste of money. Do you know what $1 billion can do for inner city kids taking them? Say, for instance, we took that ridiculous amount of money that we just spent on the Trump, what's it called, Biden campaign, or we'll take it back, the Clinton Trump campaign. You took that $1 billion and you said, I'm going to educate every kid in the inner city in East St. Louis. You could do so. We just piss money away in this
Joe,
country.
listen.
Piss it away
I
on
agree.
stupid, frivolous crap.
Well, the thing is this: if you wanted to do, and then we're going to move on to our next topic at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. We're way in the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. By the way, go to the website, kick the tires, open the hood. You'll want to be a subscriber to the Crusade channel, okay? Because King Dude is the King Dude, and he's got a great show and a great lineup. Graciously enough, he has Joe and Joe on his station, and we love him for it. But then, Joe, real quick. Then if they're going to put money, if campaigns need money, then the government's going to have to set a limit, a certain amount of money for a presidential campaign. No outside contributions. The Democrats get half, the Republicans get half. Spend it how you want, and when you're done, you're done.
That's right. And then the best man win.
That's it.
Let the people have a say, but we don't have a say. And here's the thing: as long as that goes on, Joe, I'm going to be honest, you're going to see this crap. And they're going to fight against any politician, call him a Republican or a Democrat, that wants to represent the voice of the American people, because the institutional men and women that run everything do not want you to have power. They like their power.
Well,
and that's the way it is.
They've absolutely proven that. So let's move on for a sec, Joe. Raymond Densero in Crisis Magazine, he writes, Elon Musk, flawed defender of big families. So this guy Musk, Joey, look, I'm certainly, from what I know about him, I'm not going to, we say all the time, Joe, there's no political messiahs. Well, there's no corporate messiahs either, okay? But Elon Musk, Joe, is a guy who I have to respect in terms of the fact that he likes to ruffle feathers. And I think he's being sincere. I do. I think he's being sincere. And so he's got something to say about families. And I'm going to throw that over to you.
Well, basically, somebody in his, I guess his executives had twins, and basically Musk posted something on Twitter making fun of the left's one of their cherished ideas, talking about basically how overpopulation crisis of having kids, which is actually the exact opposite. Because many countries, and we've talked about this on the show, basically they have they have a population crisis. They don't have enough kids. That's factual. Once again, look it up. It's one of the lies that the elites like to throw out there. You just had what's his face at the UN, Prince Harry, talking about that. It's embarrassing, frankly.
You know what? It actually, when it's so demonstrable, especially guys like us who we read. We read objective people who know more about this than Al Gore or anybody could possibly know about this. Okay. When you look at a guy like Stephen Mosher, this is what Stephen Mosher does for a living. Okay. He analyzes population. That's what he does. Okay. Joe, countries are starving. Their population, they don't have enough population to feed the workforce. Okay. In other words, they're trying to encourage people in this country. In these countries, China recently, I think, moved from a one-child policy to a two-child policy, which is still disgusting in and of itself, because they realize they're underpopulated. So it's just a lie. It's a lie. But Musk had something to say about it. You please, Joe, continue.
No, but he basically made those comments, and he's spot on, and he'll be ignored. Joe, for crying out loud. The Pope's in Canada. My wife was telling me that they're talking about eating bugs. I've talked about this on the news flash on the front line. They're talking about eating bugs because cows and pigs basically, from their basically, going to the bathroom, cause nitrogen to go into the air. I mean, like, dude, these people are crazy, dude. I mean, it is like they'll look at me and they'll say, no, 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 you're crazy. No, I'm sorry. I'm not eating crickets. Sorry, guys, not doing it. Not doing it. And by the way, the leadership who's saying that you should eat crickets, I bet you they're not eating them. It's sick. Joe, I'll be honest with you. As our friend Mark Levin would say, it's sick and it's getting sicker because
No,
it
no,
is.
that's Bob Grant. Bob
Oh,
Grant
Bob,
said
but
that.
they're just sick. I mean, it's just insane. I'll be honest with you. And frankly, again, the media just plays along and lies to everybody, and they suck it up. They
Joe,
just
they
suck it
have
up.
to listen. When you want, see, people don't make a lot of times. People don't connect dots. Joe Resinello, there is a direct dot connection between the sexual revolution of the 1960s, sexual liberation, and this whole climate change. Let's not get a strike on YouTube. This climate change nonsense. Okay, we just got a strike. Whatever. Because people don't realize you have to push this. You have to scare people into keeping abortion legal. You have to scare people into keeping contraception legal. Why? We're going to have too many children. And too many children, the planet's not going to be able to feed the babies. We're not going to be able to do it. So we might as well just contracept. And when the contraception fails, yes, we need abortion because there's just too many people. Can't you see AOC crying, Joe Resinello, and saying there's too many people and the world's going to come to an end in 2030? I mean, Joe, not for nothing. This is what they do. But let me tell you something. We like quoting scripture once in a while at the front line with Joe and Joe. Ecclesiastes, Joe, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. Let me give you an example. Densero says in the article, in ancient Rome, a low birth rate was not merely or even primarily an economic problem. It was a sign of a cultural problem and a moral problem. In Rome, it was a sign that the culture didn't value marriage, the family, children. It was the culture that practiced adultery and infanticide. It was that culture, Joe, that doomed the greatest civilization the world had ever seen. Okay, 1,000 years of Rome, from both the Republic and the Empire. One need not overly exert one's imagination to see elements of Rome's problems reflected in our modern society. Joe, even Karl Marx, yes, I'm going to quote Karl Marx. Even Karl Marx said, yeah, history repeats itself. First time is tragedy. Second time is farce. This is a farce we're living in now. That's exactly what it is. And the parallels, Joe, are striking.
It is. It's sad. It really is. I still say most people, I have faith in people, don't buy a lot of it. They don't. Like if you go into the kitchen table, like, conversations of America, they listen to this. The average person's just like, you're out of your mind. I'm
Right.
not eating crickets. Sorry. And frankly, if I have 3 kids or whatever, I'm not hurting the world. They're out of touch. And frankly, that's got to stop. It's got to stop in our politics. And frankly, to be honest with you, nothing is going to change until it does. It
Well,
really isn't. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in 2024. But again, don't expect big things, because even if Trump does win, they're going to fight him like they're going to fight him like you've never seen a human being get fought against. I mean,
Joe,
Republicans and Democrats.
let me tell you something. We've said it before on the show. It's not going to get us in trouble for saying it. I think they're going to. I think they're going to try to kill him.
Oh, Joe, I
If he gets
didn't want
elected,
to
they're going
say
to
it.
try to
I
kill
didn't
him.
want to say it, but you're right. It's sick. I've never seen hate. I thought I saw hatred against George Bush, and there was hatred
Real
against
hatred.
Bush. It's nothing. Because the difference is they didn't fear George Bush. They fear Donald Trump. They do. And that's why, I'll be honest with you, it's sick. It is sick what these people are capable of doing.
Do you know what's funny, Joe, along the lines of what you're saying? We only have a couple of minutes left here on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. You know what's funny? And it's just everything you're saying is just It's just so sad. I apologize, Joe. I lost my train of thought. But what were you immediately saying?
No, I was just saying about what's it called? Like politicians that actually try to help people. I mean, like to be honest with you,
Oh,
I mean, like you can't do those things. There's
not if you're
certain
going against the establishment.
you
If you're
can't do it.
you can't
They
do
will
that. And
not
what my
allow,
larger
like,
point
unless it's like a full-on battle. Like there's, to be honest with you, like a cultural revolution. Powerful people, you see, it's masked here. Like in other civilizations, like you could look at, say, like, England, where you had like lords and ladies and all that other stuff. And then you could look at the different castes in India. Here it's just masked. All these people, they sit on the boards of everything.
right.
Like they run everything.
Yeah.
You can't breach that. You can't.
Well,
They
see, the
won't
thing is,
allow it.
even if you, and what bothers me too, getting real quick back to it, we're not going to be able to get to our last segment, which is fine. So we'll just stay on this. What bothers me too is they treated Bush like garbage. Okay, obviously their hatred of Donald Trump was complete, to use the word complete. But what bothers me is the John McCains of the world, God rest his soul, the Mitt Romneys of the world. The left treated them viciously when they ran for president. Romney was a racist. McCain was a fascist. McCain became their friend. He went back to the Senate, became their friend. Romney marched with Black Lives Matter. Mitt, they called you a racist when you ran for president. You forget that? That's one of the not the problem.
Both of them are worth over $200 million, Joe.
Crazy.
I mean, that's the problem. They are the lords of America. The Bushes, they're royalty. And they're like, this is the problem.
I think their time, Joe, I read an article about Liz Cheney the other day and neocons like George Bush and her father. All right. And I had no real qualms with Dick Cheney. Okay. I kind of like Dick Cheney. But nonetheless, they do on the right. They represent the oligarchs. They are in bed with them. That's why Bush could get up there after getting savaged by a guy like Obama, savaged by a woman like Hillary Clinton or by Bill Clinton. Okay, they can get up there and take pictures because they're all good.
Why does he care, Joe? The Bushes are so powerful. Like that's the whole thing. It's just lip service and bullcrap.
I think they're losing their power, Joe. I do. I think Trump is an indication, at least, that their power is waning because they did not represent working people in this country. But no matter how much the left doesn't want to hear it, Trump did. Okay. And they did not represent our interests, just like Joe Biden doesn't represent our interests. He could bring gas prices down tomorrow. He's not going to do it.
Oh, that's an absolute fact. But people, sadly, though, it's because of the tool that the media basically is in the hand of these people, and they basically win the people over. And frankly, the elites know that. They control the messaging. People don't look under the covers. They don't read. And frankly, they're not willing to fight, and they're not willing to sacrifice. I told you, financial boycotts work. I'm telling you right now, you starve someone right out of business. If people, that's how Gandhi threw the British out of India.
Yeah.
Financial boycotts.
Joe, we got to leave it. Joe, we got to leave it there. We're up at the end of the show. Like I said, we could keep this conversation going on for a very long time, but we want to thank you all out there for joining us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, kick the tires, open the hood. We think you're going to want to subscribe. So go to crusadechannel.com and listen for free. You're going to love the lineup. We want to thank you all for joining us. Wherever you see Joe and I on social media, we now will be going live on Monday nights from now on for the foreseeable future. Monday nights at 9:00 Eastern time. We'd ask you to join us. And wherever you see us on social media, please do something to help us. Like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon. You have to go. So we want to thank everybody for joining us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello on the Crusade Channel. And wherever you see Joe and I on social media, please like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Help us out if you can. remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.